Hello, everybody. It's time for me to narrate another book for you. Hello, this is Chance Paladin, and today we're going to be reading book number 5, Preheated Mountain. This is an urban and rural survival story written and narrated by yours truly, Chance Paladin. Some legalese first. All rights reserved. No portion of this book may be reproduced in any form without permission from the author except as permitted by U.S. copyright law. This is a work of fiction. Names, characters, businesses, places, events, and incidents are either the product of the author's imagination or used in a fictitious manner. Any resemblance to actual persons living or dead or actual events are purely coincidental. Content advisory is as follows. I write post-apocalypse stories. Therefore, portions of these stories are intended for mature audiences. There's about as much romance as you would expect in a typical post-apocalypse scenario. Explicit sexual acts where included are germane to the story and not intended to be gratuitous or fetishized. There isn't really any hard swearing worse than what you'd hear on cable. There's a moderate range of violence as would be expected in a post-apocalypse story. However, the suffering aspects are not deliberately glamorized or embellished upon. Forward. It began to seem more apparent every day that people were more interested in talking than doing. Both sides were building their people up to something, but nobody knew what. Instead of training, preparing, networking, or de-escalating, there seemed to be pockets of people who just ran their mouths or keyboards with no apparent off switch. There was a never-ending audience, with the biggest reception coming from those who got off on one-upping the people running their mouths. Their bogus rants were easily dissolved, but nobody on either side would tell them to completely knock it off. Eventually everyone got tired of people arguing. The arguing was dividing the movements worse than the escalating rants. This drove many on both sides offline and underground to train even harder without distraction. Bah.
Thanks.
Bah. Chapter 1. Waking Up. Home subdivision 6 weeks after the collapse. Late winter, early spring. I slept for a few hours, well enough, then woke up before my alarm. I checked my phone and I still had 2 hours left until I needed to get up. Some mornings I used to have to sleep for an extra 2 to 3 hours before I could get up. I would have to keep sleeping until it didn't feel like electricity was coursing through me. Other days I could only sleep for about 4 hours total and the rest and I was ready to go. It seemed like this morning would be the latter. I tried and was able to sleep about a half an hour before waking up and thinking I was late again. This happened several times, and in between one of the attempts at sleep I had a dream. The dream was a variation of a dream I had 100 times before. I was trying to get to the office to visit everyone. The office had long since let me go and never hired me back, leaving me to be unemployed since that was where most of my professional network was. This dream went into so much more detail, though. Horrific detail. We went to get on the freeway to go to my prior employer and the freeway was jammed. 4 lanes in each direction, completely jammed. We were able to take a side lane where the traffic started moving easier, only to get up to the barrier and only to realize the people jammed on the other side wasn't through traffic. The congestion consisted of people being turned around ahead of the consistent flow of traffic originated from the barrier. We pulled up to the barrier and it extended across incoming and outgoing traffic's lanes. The path being physically blocked made no sense, though. There was no issue with the road. Law enforcement simply wasn't letting anyone through to the city, and they wouldn't say why. We got turned around and we were able to get me to the building to see my prior coworkers. When I got to work, my prior supervisor, the one that had prior cost me my job, promptly took my favorite hat with a sneer on his face. Even though him and I had a lot of friction at first, eventually we both learned how to get along. It had really upset me that he cost me my job in the end after a year and a half of working with him. His judgment error cost him his career advancement, though, as well, and he never got another direct report again. So he takes my hat with a mocking look and scampers off. I decide that I'll get my hat back later and go to use the restroom. That's when I realize I don't have shoes on or socks. I go to the bathroom and realize every stall has a urinal that's been leaking water. And there's so much more urine on the floor that I can't use the bathroom without stepping in it in my bare feet. I keep going from stall to stall, checking the urinals, trying to find one where I can't step in without getting my feet and pant legs soaked in urine and water. I finally find one, but that's when something starts dripping on me from the ceiling. The floor above me had a bathroom also and was leaking black slime and was getting all over me. It had apparently flooded and was now leaking down. No matter where I moved, the black slime continued to drip down from the ceiling and floor above. I went to the sink to try to wash it off. I looked down and realized I had socks and shoes on again. That's good, I thought, accepting the return of my footwear as if this was something normal. I started washing the slime off me in the sink. Other people had been coming in and out of the bathroom and didn't seem to notice these issues at all. I woke up again for no particular reason and thought I'd once again slept in. I had 3 minutes left until my alarm was going to go off, so I pressed the buttons on the menu and told the phone application to shut the alarm off. This alerted my panther kitty, who tromped to me loudly meowing good morning and then started licking my face. I guess she liked the taste of my tears, the result of what got me to sleep the night before. I held my phone at an angle that wouldn't interfere with her grooming routine. If I interrupted the sleek black kitty, she would have to start all over. If I tried to stop her altogether, it would make her extremely fussy, and then she would take off and mess up my stuff. She was my therapy kitty, and together we were able to get through this. My normal phone routine was messed up since the area had gone to hell. Normally I would check my multiple news feeds, but that was all out the window now. I had removed the app from my app launch screen, but not uninstalled them. It had been able to scoop up some of the final news clips off an open Wi-Fi before the internet got shut off, which I hadn't expected. I like to review the final news stories sometimes, but not right now. I went to check my calendar application to confirm my schedule for the day. My calendar worked offline airplane mode and hardly took up no battery life, so it worked really well for me. I chuckled at it being called airplane mode when it should have been called SHTF mode. Oh well. Maybe if there's ever another update. It looked like I was scheduled for dawn patrol of my subdivision. The cat finished her morning routine of licking my face and kneading some of my muscles, then hopped down to check her food and water. I crawled out of bed and began to get ready. It had been about 6 weeks since the collapse officially happened. There had been some initial resistance in the subdivision to having perimeter defense, but that went away when the de facto subdivision leader decided to go for a walk outside the secure zone. Security leadership tried to talk her out of it. She refused. They offered to send security with her, and she refused. "Having all those guns just makes you a target," she kept saying sardonically, as if being ultra condescending to us somehow willed her reality into existence. She insisted that nothing was wrong and that she was going for a walk outside the perimeter and there was nothing we could do about it. We had debated sending security with her anyway, shadowing her, but decided not to. It would have raised too many questions having security following someone without consent, and we both needed and wanted everyone accounted for. Each one of us was extremely pivotal to the security of the subdivision. It was already a thin group, but there were 13 of us total, and all with some variation of radios. Some blisters, some programmable, and a few base stations. Enough for everyone to talk on the common channels. 2 at each gate, and a few floating on internal patrols. 14-hour shifts, 2 rotating groups. It wasn't ideal, but it's all we had. Our security officer confirmed everyone was accounted for. We had 7 on and 6 asleep. She left the gate and headed down the street and never came back. Her cronies reported her missing several hours later and immediately accused us. They did this since she was the most outspoken against our armed security details. Surely we must have had something to do with it. They formed a search party, and we implored them not to go, but their minds were made up. We offered again to send security with them, and they declined, stating that we were probably the ones who did it. We tried to hide, rolling our eyes at them, and face-palming to at least show them a little respect. They believed what they believed even to the death. Normalcy bias had overridden reality for them, and the only thing we could do is let them go. We noticed in the darkness that 2 of their group stayed behind. Slowly coming to the realization that we may be right, the 2 sulked in the shadows and stood behind us, hoping to not be noticed by their likely now prior comrades. Both nodded to each other and quietly to us as the smaller party left, as if to beg us to not sentence them to doom by calling them out. We respected their reluctance and kept our silence in the best poker faces we could in the dark.